very, very confident, a really good player as well. But Speedy was the one, I think, who took him in hand emotionally and gave him a sense of presence.
Yeah. And you know, you went on to, in between Who activity, create an album with them in little sessions along the way in between bursts of Who activity, like I said, which became Hollywood Dream, that was released in October of '70. When the Who went on the road to promote Tommy, the Thunderclap Newman first single, which was released on the same day as the Tommy album here in the UK.
Is that so?
Yeah,
Wow.
May of 1969.
I can remember being at Top of the Pops, having just the week before done Pop Kimball Wizard, and being really happy to be at Top of the Pops and not having to perform. But also really happy to be there as a record producer with a #1 record. It went straight to #1 and it stayed there for about 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it made a really, really good showing in America. And a bit later, when it was used in the Magic, what's it called? Magic Christian film, it made another appearance in the charts.
Yeah, and of course,
unfortunately, though, it was on track, which was run by criminals. So nobody got any money. I never got paid. I've never had a cent, not 1 fucking cent for that record.
Yeah.
Now, neither did the boys in the band.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of a tragic kind of element to this.
Yeah.
You know, Kit Lambert ended up with a palace on the Grand Canal in Venice. You know, it was, you know, fucking awful looking back. But you know, at the time, I never thought about money at all. I didn't care about money.
Well, and like you've said, you know, it really took me aback when I knew you were fond of Thunderclap, of those sessions, but you actually said that it's your favorite, bar none, session.
I think that's right. Yeah.
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 So that was the payoff. Was the
well, it was
joy
also because it was in my studio. I don't know what my poor wife Karen or my kids thought. I remember Emma once saying that she had a record out herself, and she was saying in an interview that when she was a kid, she didn't mind me using having a recording studio in the house, because at least she knew I was there and could sleep at night. But one day we had the Who in that studio. Keith Moon's drum kit filled up almost half the room. John Entwistle's bass head with the amplifier was in the control room. The speakers, the big 4x12 speakers, were down in the basement. So the whole house was vibrating. And all of the neighbours were so excited because Tommy had been out. This was a bit later, this was after Tommy. And were excited because they could hear the Who for free. Weird.
So then, of course, You're Gone, promoting Tommy, the single, Something in the Air, rockets to #1, and somebody decided we need to push these guys out into a live environment to promote the single, and that's when things the wheels started to fall off.
Yeah, I think the wheels started to fall off, but they in a sense they were never on. So, but the big mistake I always felt was that Speedy wanted to be a frontman. It wasn't that he wasn't capable of being a frontman. He was, a wild card. He had real personality. I'm sure he was a really good showman, given the microphone at the front of the band. But he was such a great drummer. His style was, it's hard. He was like a Charlie Watts drummer. You couldn't really quite work out what was so good about him. Part of what he did, and maybe it was the bass drum or something, was kind of behind the beat. When we now look at, for example, the early beats from rap music, which is sort of early 80s it started. One of the things about it was the way that those guys used the MPC machines that were created around that time, was the way that they used them to create delays and emphasis and a feel that you could only get with those machines. Speedy had a feel, and he brought in another drummer. And I don't think, from what I've heard of the live stuff, it didn't sound like it didn't sound like Thunderclap Newman. It just sounded like some other band. You know, and also by then I think, you know, didn't they bring in another guitar player or something as well?
They brought in obviously a bassist, because their bassist was in the States with the Who.
Oh, right, yeah.
And a bassist and a drummer. And then after...
So that's enough, isn't it? There are two very important people in the band, the bassist and the drummer, who weren't playing. And so some of the colour of the Hollywood Dream album collection, you know, I think somebody could have clacked away on bass, you know, copying, because my bass playing was very, very, very basic. And but I think it was Speedy's drumming that we missed. The other thing is that I think by putting himself in front of the band, he had to learn how to be Pat Lyons, in a sense. You know, he had to learn how to be a frontman.
Mm. Yeah, and it seemed like Speedy was maybe from like a personality wise or characteristic wise was better off in behind the drums as well, because when he moved to the front he had stage fright, because he was all of a sudden right in the front.
Oh wow!
So that brought on a whole other set of problems.
What stage fright?
So looking back at the album, the completed album, Hollywood Dream, that 95% of it was recorded in your house, I think. What is it that stands out about it to you, you know, today?
I think it was just amazing fun. I mean, it was just incredible fun. You know, Jimmy towards the end started to write songs, came up with a couple of great songs. About halfway through, I got my first 8-track machine, proper professional machine. So 2 or 3 of the tracks were recorded on 8-track machines. And so I wasn't working from tape machine to tape machine. But technically, the rig was... My rig at home was superior to the rig that the Who were recording on at Olympic. You know, I had an 8-track machine with Dolbys on every track. I had an Ampex machine to mix down to with Dolbys. You know, I found some. I was looking after tapes for a friend of mine, and he'd recorded at Roy Harper. He'd recorded at Abbey Road around the same period, and they only had 1 Dolby unit. I had 6 in my little room. You know, this is to reduce hit and distortion, to improve the quality of bouncing, and I'd only discovered that by accident because I'd met Ray Dolby. We had the same boat together on the Thames, and zipping up and down on these little speedboats, and we were always hitting the same logs. Anyway, I met him and he introduced me to his system. So I was one of the first users. But so the fact of the matter was, whatever anybody did in the room, it sounded fucking amazing. And we got a great drum sound, and I was really experimenting with cheap devices to distort the drum kits, for example, and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember which track it is. I Don't Mind, is that what?
I Don't Know. I
Don't Know, yeah. The bass drum, I put the microphone up the chimney, and the bass drum is going into the chimney, so there's this distorted delay on it. Yeah. And a few tricks like that. I had so much fun doing it. It was just great fun. And not only that, but when it was finished, it felt to me like a concept album. It felt to me like a story. Mm-hmm. And the story was also partly the story which you've so incredibly well told now, it was known to many of us. You know, some of the people that are here today probably know the story, and some of it they will have picked up along the way. But you knew there was a story there, and there were a number of stories that went on. You know, the most interesting stories in the arts, but certainly in the music business, are the flash floods. You know, what would you call them? The fireworks. The people that, you know, like Tiny Tim. You know, the people that appear one day and then a couple of months later they're gone. Yeah. They're the most interesting stories. And it felt to me like we had a story. With Hollywood Dream, it felt to me, and you know, it got great reviews. Mm-hmm. It got great reviews, and was really welcomed by the critical press. I remember the Village Voice, who were always really nasty to the Who, were really positive about the record. Mm-hmm. They kind of got the sense that it was created in a workshop, in a friendly environment, that it was something of and that it was a true collaboration. The interesting thing about Thunderclap Newman is that it was more of a fucking collaboration for me than the Who ever was.
More of a democratic.
Yeah,
type
I felt
process.
like part of the band rather than being, the front man in a sense, as the composer, the demo writer, and the tried to be the producer.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible story, not just because of the music.